Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Karima, and today we're going to be talking about how to apply the GLB-90 method to a audit environment. So this video is for security managers that are a little bit frustrated. So let's say audits in your environment are treated like a bit of a sprinting exercise. Once the audit is done, no one thinks about it. So the purpose of this video is to create an environment, or to give you some planning points towards creating an environment where you're always audit ready, but you're not necessarily sprinting towards the next audit. So to set the scene, in a highly regulated environment, let's say you've got a lot of reporting duties, you've got regulatory compliance that you need to meet, you might have various frameworks that you're audited against, plus let's say the regulator or something like that. So in that environment, it's easy to be almost led or dragged by the audit, whatever audit is coming up next, which is understandable because there are consequences when you don't meet audit requirements. So it's understandable. In addition to that, your staff, it's always running towards the next deadline. It's not a very empowering way to approach an audit because, people are always panicking and sprinting towards whatever audit result you need to meet, and then once the audit is done, people forget about it. So it's similar to like cramming for an exam. You want to get all the content in, you want to remember everything, and then when you do the exam, you pass the exam, you forget about everything you've learned. Similar sort of thing. So we want to create an environment where we are security focused, or security first rather than audit first, because my thinking is that if you meet the security requirements, as in you're doing that already, audit will come in and audit everything and everything will be fine. So yeah, rather than doing it the other way around. So this is where the GLB-90 method will come in. So the first one is gather people. So in this stage, you want to understand what your reporting requirements are. So how many do you have? When are they due? So is it an annual thing? Is it a one-off, etc.? And at this stage, you can also make a judgment call in terms of, is it worth getting an external company to do almost like a test run, or to audit what you have already and see where improvements can be made. And then the next stage is long-term planning. So at this point, focus on the capabilities you want to develop as a business, and then map the individual frameworks to those capabilities. And then as like a third step, map the frameworks against each other. So what you'll end up with is with a view of, if we develop capability A, so let's say a SOC, then that means we're satisfying framework A, framework B, frameworks, as in etc. So you'll look at it that way. So okay, we're doing this, which is what we need to do, and then tick, 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 we're also satisfying the regulator or the whatever legislation you're working towards. And that's a good way of making sure that you're centralizing capabilities, so where the business is going or what the business needs, rather than external audits. And in that, with that approach, if you decide to add more frameworks, it's easy to add extra in because you're already thinking in terms of capabilities. It's a lengthy exercise, but I think it's worth doing because then you have a view of what you would be ticking off by doing each thing, and you can be a bit more on top of things. Next, I would say baseline. So B, baseline, generate a gap analysis of the current gaps. So long term what you'd like to align with, what you have, what you're required to do because of your industry. So then almost doing like a tick box exercise and saying, okay, we've got that clause, line by line, we can do that, we haven't done that, we need to do that. This will help with the planning phase because you'll know where your deficiencies are, i.e. where the gaps are. And then based on what you find in that stage, you can start to build out a capability building plan. So again, rather than being framework oriented, you're putting it in terms of capabilities. So you can have a look at the capabilities that you need to develop. Most of the time, each capability is owned by different parts of the business. So you can kind of separate those activities out, allow everyone to own what they need to own, and start working towards that. And then we can move into the next phase, which is the 90-day plan. So develop a process for audit readiness. So in an ideal world, you would conduct business in a way that is easy, that, if you had that last minute, you're having a surprise audit, I don't know, how common that is for people, but if you're having a last minute audit, you want everything to be neatly filed away and say, if they were to ask for item A, you can, just point them towards a folder and say, this is how we do it, this is the process, this is who's responsible, and everything is neatly laid out. So that's what I call being audit ready, rather than having to prep for months and months and weeks, especially if you're in an industry where you're audited by multiple organizations and across multiple frameworks. So that means that rather than running around, you just need to say, okay, let's maintain what the records we already have year on year. So once a year you can decide to supply evidence for each thing. So when it comes to audit time, you know exactly what you're expecting, you know what you're looking for. So for each of the different frameworks, you know how they map to one another. So this piece of evidence satisfies framework A, B, and C. So let's say ISO or NIST or CAF, depending on whatever you're working with, you have you've got a clear view of how you're meeting each of them. And then next, reporting. So this is like a nice way of putting things, almost wrapping a nice bow around everything. So you've done your baseline, you know where you are, you know where you want to go, and then you know what the gaps are, but then put some nice graphs in. So then that means you can develop a overarching view in terms of where your gaps might be. So you can say that in area A, we're doing fantastically, but actually in area B, let's say framework B, we're missing 40% or something. And then year on year, you can see how you improve. And then rather than looking at audit as like a massive task, it is a massive task, but you'll have an organized approach to it. So at any given time, you'll be able to, give, let's say, leadership a view of this is where we are, these are our deficiencies, and this is what we're doing to fix it. And then, that's it really. So the first step is to gather people, understand your responsibilities. Next is long-term planning, so understanding who you'd like to align with in the future. So is it CAF, is it ISO, whatever you'd like to align with. B, baseline, understand where you are currently. And then last of all, your 90-day plan, which should include reporting and then a very detailed process for how you'll collect and collate evidence over the year. And by doing all of those, you'll shift from being reactive to being a bit more proactive, and hopefully feeling a lot less stressed when it's audit season, or being able to pass audits with a breeze because you've planned and prepared ahead of time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.